In this video, I want to go over loudness and using the loudness monitor and how to use plugins to increase the perceived loudness of your audio files. First, taking a look at the loudness control under the utility menu. When I click this is going to calculate the loudness of the audio. But first, let's talk about loudness, broadcast standards, and then how we can use this plugin to comply with the broadcast standards. So it's crucial to get your audio right with regards to the loudness when it comes to broadcast. As you can see, I've already got a problem here with the integrated loudness and the short term, or the LKFS, which is the loudness K-weighted full scale. So there are some broadcast specs. If you click here are some of the broadcaster standards that you can comply with. Now obviously with this module, it allows you to render out your audio to comply with these standards. So it's important, if you're sending files to broadcast, to know the broadcast standard for your country, or if you're sending it to another country, what their broadcast standard is. For example, this standard over here, the BS 1770-23, is probably one of the most popular standards, and most of these other standards are based off this one. So speaking of loudness, loudness is a measure of how the human hears loudness over a length of time. And different countries have determined different standards for their broadcast standards. For example, in the US, there's the ATSC A85 standard, where in Europe, it uses the EBU R128. And obviously, these are other standards from around the world. Let's stick with the US standard, the ATC A85. Now, moving over onto the left here are the targets of parameters of the loudness standard that need to be met. You've got your true peak. So the true peak is the absolute peak of the loudest part in your audio. Then you've got the integrated LKFS, which, as I mentioned before, is the L weighted to full scale. This is another measurement that needs to be met, and these are the standards. Short term is just the momentary loudness. So it's not the integrated or the whole loudness of that audio. It's the short-term loudness that's been calculated after analyzing the audio. And then the tolerance is the loudness range. Just jumping back to LKFS, this is the loudness K-weighted full scale. Now what the K-weighted part means is it means that frequency plays a part in the loudness measurement. And then with LU, this is just the difference between the loudest and quietest parts of the file. So that's going through these specific specs that need to be met, and these are the settings to make your audio compliant with that spec. So let's say I'm setting this file to the US and it needs to comply with the standard. I can just choose the standard from here and then hit render. And it's going to make sure that this audio complies to the broadcast standard of the US. As you can see now, it's matched all the measurement parameters. So this was the target that needs to be met, and the measurement has adjusted it. So now nothing's in the red, and this track will comply with the broadcast standard of the US. So that's if you're using files and you're sending them to broadcast. They just need to make sure that they're meeting those requirements and that spec, and this tool really helps you with that. Now, let's say you're not sending audio to broadcast. Now, if you've got an audio file that isn't going to broadcast, let's say you've got a music track and you want to increase the loudness because it's going to be duplicated onto a CD, well, then you can use the plugins folder. So I'm going to cancel the loudness module, undo that change there, and then I'm going to go to plugins. Then from plugins here, I can select a limiter. What I've done is I've selected the Isotope Ozone 7 Maximizer. But before getting there, you need to make sure that under your preferences that you've enabled plugin support. So preferences and the plugins tab, here you can enable audio units for the Mac and VST plugins. Then it'll scan your system and show you all the plugins that are available that you can use. Then you can just click over here and navigate to the plugin you want to use. So like I said, I went to Isotope, and I want to use the Isotope 7 Maximizer. And with this, I want to increase the perceived overall loudness of my track. So I'm going to play it back, preview it, and increase the loudness. So let's say we pull the threshold down to about -5 dB, then I can render that out. And that's increased the overall loudness of my track, but because there's a ceiling, nothing ever goes above 0 dB. So that's how to use the loudness control so that you can comply with broadcast standards, or if you're not sending stuff to broadcast, how you can use your plugins and increase the loudness with third-party limiters. Now let's check out some of the other utilities. Catch you in the next video.